The process server was dressed as a caterer when he dropped the eviction notice right next to my grandfather's open casket. He didn't even have the decency to wait until the service was over before sliding the sleek black folder onto the viewing table. My mother didn't gasp in horror. She smirked, checked her watch, and signaled for the lawyers standing in the back of the room to step forward. My name is Morgan Calloway. To the people in this room, I am 24 years old, severely autistic, and a silent burden who needs to be managed like a piece of broken furniture. They think I spend my days staring at walls and organizing my pencils by length because my brain is simple. What they don't know is that while they were busy pitying me, I was busy passing the uniform CPA examination with a score of 96. I am a licensed senior forensic auditor, and I see patterns in numbers that most people wouldn't notice if they were written in neon lights. Grandfather Jed was the only one who knew the truth, and now that he was lying cold in that box, my family thought the coast was clear. The funeral reception at the funeral home wasn't a mourning event, it was a victory lap. My parents, Robert and Diane, were already clinking champagne glasses near the floral arrangements, discussing kitchen renovations for a ranch they didn't own yet. My older sister, Tiffany, was loudly asking the funeral director if the mahogany casket was refundable since Jed wouldn't care anymore. I stood in the corner, wearing my oversized sensory-friendly hoodie, clutching Grandpa Jed's old, battered leather satchel against my chest. It was the only thing he had physically given me, or so they thought. Simon Drax, the family's oily attorney who wore a suit that cost more than my car, cornered me by the guest book. He didn't speak to me, he spoke at me, slowing his voice down like I was a toddler. "Morgan, honey," Drax said, flashing a smile that showed too many teeth. "This folder is a petition for guardianship. Your parents and Tiffany are going to take care of everything now. The ranch, the accounts, the $3.6 million Jed left behind. It's all too much for someone with your condition." My mother drifted over, resting a hand on my shoulder that felt heavy and cold. "It's for the best, Morgan. We told the court about your episodes. We explained that you lack the mental capacity to handle finances. You'll go to a nice facility where professionals can watch you, and we'll handle the heavy lifting of the estate." Tiffany laughed, sipping her free wine. "Don't worry, sweetie. We'll make sure you get a weekly allowance for your coloring books. Just sign the acknowledgement so we don't have to drag this out." I looked at the folder. Petition for guardianship due to mental incompetence. They weren't just trying to steal my inheritance, they were trying to erase my entire existence as a functioning adult. They wanted to lock me away so they could drain the trust dry. I didn't scream, I didn't stutter, I didn't even look them in the eye. I just tightened my grip on the leather satchel. Inside that bag wasn't a coloring book. It was a forensic audit of the last 5 years of my parents' finances and the first piece of evidence that was going to turn their victory lap into a prison sentence. I stared at the floor, let a confused look wash over my face, and stayed silent. Let them think they won. The price of their greed was sitting right there in my bag, accumulating interest. They thought I was nonverbal until I was 5, but Grandfather Jed knew better. He saw me organizing his loose change by mint mark when I was 6 and realized I wasn't slow, I was just meticulous. When I turned 18, while my parents were busy ignoring me to dote on Tiffany, Jed quietly paid for my online accounting degree. He paid for the CPA study materials and the 4 exam fees. He even drove me to the testing center 4 hours away, telling my parents we were birdwatching. He was the only person in the world who saw the sharp mind behind the silence, and he made me promise to use it to protect himself when he was gone. For the last 3 years, I sat in the living room with heavy noise-canceling headphones on, staring at a laptop screen. My parents thought I was playing video games or watching cartoons. I was actually mirroring their hard drives to a secure cloud server. I tracked every penny they touched, every password they saved, and every email they thought they deleted. 6 months ago, while Jed was on a ventilator fighting pneumonia, I noticed a discrepancy in his accounts. A check for $60,000 written to Callaway Home Improvements, then another for $40,000, then $80,000. $180,000 drained from Jed's liquid assets in 3 weeks. The signatures were shaky forgeries of a man who couldn't even hold a pen at the time. My parents hadn't renovated anything. They had paid off their gambling debts and bought Tiffany a new convertible. I was compiling this data into a spreadsheet when a soft knock rattled my bedroom door late one night last week. It was Toby, my 19-year-old brother. He looked sick. He is the baby of the family, usually protected from their schemes, but he was shaking like a leaf. He stepped inside and locked the door behind him. "Morgan," he whispered, his voice cracking, "I can't let them do this. I heard them talking about the facility. They want to put you in a state home, the kind with barred windows. They said it's the only way to keep you from accessing the accounts." He pulled a small silver USB drive from his jeans pocket and pressed it into my hand. "It's all on here. The group chat, Mom, Dad, Tiffany, and that lawyer." I plugged it in immediately. It was worse than I imagined. They weren't just planning guardianship. They were manufacturing evidence to destroy my human rights. I scrolled through texts where Tiffany joked about finding a doctor who would sign a psychiatric evaluation without ever meeting me. I found the file, a PDF of a medical assessment declaring me profoundly incapacitated, signed by a Dr. Eris. A quick background check revealed Dr. Eris worked at a clinic that had been closed for 3 years. They had copy-pasted a dead clinic's letterhead onto a lie. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I worked. I organized 3 binders, color-coded because my brain needs order to function. The red binder contained the forensic trail of the $180,000 my parents stole, complete with IP addresses and timestamps. The blue binder held the digital metadata, proving the psychiatric evaluation was a forgery and the chat logs Toby gave me. And the green binder? That was the kill shot. That held the original trust documents and the in terrorem clause they were too arrogant to read. 2 days before the hearing, Tiffany sent me a text message. "Make sure you wear something nice for court, weirdo. Don't embarrass us. It will be over in 10 minutes." I looked at the message and then at my stack of evidence sitting on my desk. She was right about one thing. It would be over in 10 minutes. Just not for me. 3 days before the hearing, my family tried to offer me what they called mercy. We were sitting in the living room, the same room where they had spent 20 years talking over my head like I wasn't there. Simon Drax sat in my grandfather's favorite armchair, placing a crisp document on the coffee table. It was titled Voluntary Consent to Guardianship and Asset Management. "Morgan," Drax said, using that slow, syrupy voice again, "we don't want to drag you through a messy courtroom. It's loud, it's confusing, and the judge might send you somewhere far away. If you sign this, you agree that you aren't capable of handling the $3.6 million. Your parents will manage it for you. You can stay in your room, no state home, no barred windows." My mother leaned forward, her eyes wide with fake concern. "Just sign the paper, honey. We know you don't understand money. We just want to protect you from making mistakes." I looked at the pen Drax was holding out. I knew exactly what this document was. It was a settlement. If I signed it, I would be voluntarily handing over control. But more importantly, if I signed it, the legal battle would never officially happen. And if the legal battle didn't happen, the in terrorem clause in Grandfather Jed's trust would never be triggered. That clause was the trap Jed and I had discussed in whispered tones while he was in hospice. It stated clearly, if any beneficiary initiates a legal challenge against the appointed trustee or the distribution of assets, they immediately forfeit all gifts, bequests, and inheritances. Currently, the will left my parents a hefty retirement fund of $400,000 and Tiffany the vacation cabin in Aspen. They were greedy, so they wanted my $3.6 million too. But if they sued me for guardianship to get it, they were technically challenging the trust's designation of me as the competent beneficiary. They would lose everything, but only if they filed the petition and walked into that courtroom. I needed them to be greedy. I needed them to think I was weak. I didn't take the pen. Instead, I started rocking back and forth slightly, a stimming behavior I usually controlled, but now amplified for the audience. I fixed my eyes on a spot on the carpet and didn't blink. "She doesn't get it," Tiffany groaned, scrolling on her phone. "She's zoned out. Just file the petition, Simon. We're wasting time. Let the judge sign the order so we can get access to the accounts by the weekend." Robert, my father, sighed and stood up. "Fine, we tried to be nice. We'll do it the hard way. See you in court, Morgan." They stormed out of the house, slamming the door. They thought they had just made a hard decision. In reality, they had just pulled the pin on a grenade they were holding. The next 48 hours were a blur of calculated silence. I had to file my evidence list with the court clerk by 5 o'clock in the afternoon on the day before the hearing. If I missed the deadline, my evidence wouldn't be admissible. If I filed too early, Drax would see it and pull the petition before the hearing started. At 4:59, I walked into the Gallatin County Clerk's office. I was wearing my hoodie, hood up. I slid a heavy manila envelope across the counter to the clerk, an old woman named Mrs. Higgins who had known Jed for decades. "Evidence list for case number 4922, I whispered, defendant appearing pro se. Mrs. Higgins looked at the thick packet. "You're representing yourself, Heavy?" "Yes," I said. "Please mark these exhibits as containing sensitive medical and financial data. Request to seal until the hearing commences." By marking them as containing sensitive medical info, which was technically true since it contained the forged psych eval, Drax wouldn't be able to access the specific contents until we were in front of the judge. He would see that I had filed evidence, but he would assume it was just gibberish or crayon drawings. The morning of the hearing arrived with a gray, overcast sky. My family had already left for the courthouse, likely planning a celebratory brunch for after they had me committed. I went to my closet and pushed aside the hoodies and sweatpants. From the back, I pulled out a garment bag I had bought online months ago. I put on the tailored navy blue blazer, the crisp white blouse, and the slate gray trousers. I pulled my hair back into a tight, professional bun. I put on my glasses. Not the thick, clunky ones they made me wear, but the rimless, modern frames I used for work. I looked in the mirror. The silent, confused girl they knew was gone. The senior forensic auditor was ready to work. I picked up the 3 color-coded binders, red, blue, and green, and walked out the door. Part 4. The fluorescent lights of courtroom 4B hummed with a low buzz that usually drove me crazy. But today, my mind was silent. My parents and Tiffany sat at the plaintiff's table looking smug. They hadn't even noticed my suit yet. They were too busy whispering to Simon Drax, who was arranging his papers with the confidence of a man who thought he was robbing a toddler. Judge Martha Steele entered the room. She was known in Gallatin County for 2 things: her zero tolerance for wasted time and her hatred of elder abuse. My family had no idea they had walked into the lion's den. Case 4922, petition for guardianship, Judge Steele announced. "Mr. Drax, you may proceed." Drax stood up, buttoning his expensive jacket. "Your Honor, this is a tragic case. My client's daughter, Morgan Calloway, is a 24-year-old woman with severe cognitive delays. She is nonverbal, unable to care for herself, and certainly unable to manage the $3.6 million estate left by her grandfather. We have a medical evaluation from a Dr. Eris confirming she has the mental capacity of a 6-year-old. He handed the forged document to the bailiff. My mother, Diane, let out a perfectly rehearsed sob, dabbing her dry eyes with a tissue. "We just want to make sure she's safe, Your Honor. She needs professional care." Judge Steele looked at the document, then at me. "Ms. Calloway, do you have counsel?" I stood up. The chair scraped against the floor, silencing the room. I adjusted my rimless glasses and looked Drax dead in the eye. "I represent myself, Your Honor." My voice was clear, steady, and sharp. No stutter, no hesitation. My mother stopped crying instantly. Tiffany's jaw dropped. Drax looked like he had just swallowed a lemon. "You speak?" Judge Steele asked, raising an eyebrow. "I do more than speak, Your Honor," I said, picking up the blue binder. "I audit." I walked to the bench. Defense Exhibit A. The plaintiff claims this psychiatric evaluation was conducted by Dr. Aris last week. However, if you turn to tab 1, you will see a business license revocation. Dr. Aris's clinic was shut down for malpractice 3 years ago. The building is currently a Starbucks. Unless I had my evaluation over a pumpkin spice latte, this document is a forgery. Drax's face turned the color of ash. "Objection! She's confused." "I am not confused, Mr. Drax," I continued, my voice rising just enough to command the room. "I am a licensed, certified public accountant in the state of Montana, license number 6429, and I have spent the last 6 months conducting a forensic audit of my parents' finances." I slammed the red binder onto the defense table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "Defense Exhibit B," I announced. "While my grandfather Jediah Calloway was intubated in the ICU, my parents, Robert and Diane Calloway, wrote 11 checks to a shell company called Calloway Home Improvements. I have traced the IP addresses used to deposit these checks directly to the Wi-Fi network in this courthouse's parking lot where my father sat while waiting for my mother to visit the hospital. Total stolen funds, $180,000. My father stood up, his face purple. "You little witch! You hacked my computer!" "Sit down, Mr. Calloway," Judge Steele roared. She turned to me, her eyes gleaming with a mix of shock and respect. "Is there more?" "One last thing, Your Honor," I said, reaching for the green binder. This was it. The trap. I turned to my family. They looked terrified. They knew about the forgery. They knew about the theft. But they didn't know about the clause. "Mr. Drax filed this petition claiming I am incompetent to manage the trust," I said, opening the green cover. "By filing this legal action, my family is formally contesting the validity of Grandfather Jed's decision to name me as the sole beneficiary and trustee." I flipped to page 42. I direct the court's attention to the in terrorem clause, also known as the no contest clause. It states, "If any beneficiary under this will seeks to obtain an adjudication in any proceeding attacking the designation of the primary beneficiary, they shall forfeit any and all interests given to them under this will." The room went dead silent. "That means," I said, looking straight at Tiffany, "the vacation cabin in Aspen, gone. And the $400,000 retirement fund left to my parents, forfeited. It all reverts to the primary trust, which belongs to me." Drax looked at the judge, panic in his eyes. "Your Honor, we move to withdraw the petition." "It's too late, Mr. Drax," Judge Steele said. "You filed the motion. You presented forged evidence. The contest has occurred." She slammed her gavel. "Petition for guardianship is denied with extreme prejudice. The forfeiture clause is hereby enforced immediately.
All assets designated to Robert, Diane, and Tiffany Calloway are transferred to the Morgan Calloway Trust, effective this second. She glared at Drax. And, counselor, you will not be leaving this courthouse. I am holding you in contempt pending a referral to the State Bar Association for presenting forged documents. Bailiff, take them into custody. My mother screamed. My father slumped into his chair. Tiffany tried to bolt for the door, but the bailiff blocked her path. I packed up my binders, one by one. I didn't smile, I didn't gloat. I just looked at my family, broke, exposed, and defeated, and said the only words that mattered. The math never lies. 6 months later, the silence on the Calloway Ranch didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like freedom.
The sun was setting over the mountains, painting the sky the exact same shade of purple that Grandfather Jed loved so much. I sat on the porch swing, the old leather satchel resting on my lap, listening to the wind instead of insults. The fallout from that morning in courtroom 4B had been swift and absolute. Simon Drax didn't just lose his license. He was currently awaiting trial for fraud and conspiracy. It turns out, submitting forged medical documents to a federal judge is a felony, and without his license to practice law, he couldn't even defend himself. My parents, Robert and Diane, found themselves in a facility, just like they had planned for me. But it wasn't a care home. Because of the forensic evidence in my red binder proving they stole $180,000 from a dying man, the district attorney charged them with elder abuse and embezzlement. They were currently out on bail, living in a one-bedroom rental, because the bank foreclosed on their house to cover their legal fees. They lost the $400,000 retirement fund Jed had left them. Every penny of it reverted to me under the forfeiture clause. And Tiffany? She learned the hard way that lifestyle influencers need a lifestyle to influence. Without the Aspen cabin, which I sold immediately, and without my parents' money to fund her shopping habits, she had to get a job. I heard from a cousin that she is working the front desk at a gym, checking memberships for minimum wage. But the best part wasn't their punishment. It was what I did with the spoils of their war. I used the $400,000, the money my parents had been banking on for their golden years, to fully fund Toby's tuition at the University of Montana. He visits on weekends, and for the first time in his life, he doesn't look scared. He looks free. As for the ranch and the $3.6 million, I didn't hoard it. I turned the main house into the Jedediah Center for Financial Literacy. We teach neurodivergent adults how to manage their money, how to spot fraud, and how to protect themselves from people who think silence means stupidity. I teach the forensic accounting workshops myself. I opened the leather satchel one last time. Inside, there was a new ledger. It didn't track stolen checks or forged signatures. It tracked scholarships given, bills paid, and futures secured. I closed the book and looked out at the horizon. My family spent 24 years trying to fix me because they thought I was broken. In the end, I was the only one who was calibrated correctly. They played a game of greed, but they forgot the most important role of accounting. Eventually, the books always have to balance. And today, for the first time in Calloway history, they finally do. Never mistake silence for ignorance. If you have ever won a war without saying a word, hit that subscribe button. The math is on your side.